This is our incredible supercar fleet, but it is also incredibly weird. So today I want to walk you through some incredibly strange kind of quirks or weird things about every single one of our supercars here. We're gonna go through every single one. I didn't know most of these, so we talked to a lot of our technicians before we shot this, and when you go at the end of this video, comment below, did you know any of these? Did you not know any of them? We wanna hear, and as you're watching too, if you know another one that we don't talk about, we want you to comment that below. So let's jump right into looking at these cars. Very first one, since it's right here, this is the Nissan GTR. Now the first one that we can't look at, and probably some of you might know about, when this car came out in 2007, yes, this car is that old. This one obviously has been redone. They've gone through a couple different generations. But one of the things that made the news when this car came out was that in Japan, when it was released, it was limited to a certain miles per hour on the road. But the internal GPS in this car, when it got to a racetrack, would switch that limiter off and would change up the whole ECU so that it was more tuned for the track, which is just absolutely nuts that the car got there and knew that it was ready to perform. But we're not talking about that today because we can't look at that today. So what I'm gonna do is open this up. And here's the weirdest thing about this car. It's not necessarily as weird about this car, but it's weird because this is literally the only car in our fleet that has one of these, that needs a prop for the engine bay. Every other car in our fleet it's automatic, there's springs and hydraulics, but this is the only one. Partially because, yes, this car has lasted really well, and also because, it's a Japanese Nissan, so they're just practical. Also, look at how great this car looks. All right, next up, we're actually going to skip the McLaren because foreshadowing, there's a lot going on. These cars are fantastic, but there's some interesting things in the quirks, so we're gonna save it for later. So we're moving on to the Ferrari. Now, the very first thing is, let me tell you, if I owned a Ferrari, I don't think that I would ever be driving this anytime there was anything but beautiful sun, lovely weather, but apparently Ferrari thinks that some people will not only be driving these in picturesque weather, down perfect roads on a weekend, but also will be driving this car in the winter, because here's what it says. The maximum speed with winter tires is 240 kilometers per hour or 149 miles per hour. I can't imagine somebody, one, even putting winter wheels on this, or two, ever wanting to drive this in the winter, unless I guess if you're some crazy YouTuber that's gonna just thrash it in the snow. But even still, it just seems absolutely crazy. But if you do, Ferrari has this sticker warning you, don't do it. Don't drive faster than 150 miles per hour, 149 miles per hour. And actually, when we were talking to our technician, Nick, before, he goes, you just have to imagine that probably what happened here is that at some point, some guy did on winter tires drive fast and something happened. And so he complained to Ferrari and he was like, well, you didn't warn me. And so now they have to put the sticker on every single one of the 488. So if you look at any one of our cars, this sticker is on here. Just fascinating. Now, the other thing that I didn't know and found out today about these Ferraris, and it just shed some light on for me, and if you've been to one of our events, you actually this might be a huge revelation for you, because these cars, any Ferrari, when it sits for 20 minutes, sitting on idling, not had a door open or taken out of park or anything like that, if it just sits and no one touches it for 20 minutes, there will start a countdown timer, a 10-second countdown timer that starts beeping inside the car. And then after that 10-second timer, if you don't do anything, the full alarm goes off on one of these cars. So if you've ever been to an event in the first thing in the morning and you see our technicians are all working on the cars and making sure everything's good, if they don't get to a Ferrari fast enough, that's why the alarm goes off, which is just absolutely hilarious. Of what is the point of that? You leave your Ferrari for 20 minutes, say that you own a Ferrari, you leave it outside a hotel. After 20 minutes, it's not like it just automatically shuts off like you would think. If you have an auto start, if you leave it for too long, it shuts off. No, it just turns on the alarm. It doesn't do anything. It just starts going off with the alarm, which is just the weirdest thing ever. And that's why these alarms will go off every so often at one of our events, which I just find fascinating. I remember it happening to me at Utah Motorsports campus, and it's just hilarious. So that to me is one of the most entertaining quirks of any of the cars in our fleet. All right, let's move on. All right, the next one is the Lamborghini. Now this is one of our new Evos, but here's the super strange thing. So if you've read our blog, again, plug for our blog, the Lamborghini parts, I guess a few years ago, Lamborghini got bought by the Volkswagen Group, who also notoriously owns Porsche. What that means for when they did the rear wheel steering on this car is they actually used the exact same parts for the rear wheel steer on this as they did for the GT3 RS. Not even like it's a similar setup, it is the exact same part number. So if when we lift this car up, we once had this car and that car up on the lifts next to each other, and if you look at the parts for the actuators for the rear wheel steering system, they're the exact same part number. Printed on there, it's the same part number, which is just crazy, and it makes you feel kind of like less unique, but that's the one crazy thing about the Huracan. Now, here's the other thing. I just found this out a little bit ago. I've looked at these cars a dozen times. I've taken a number of pictures of them, and I've looked at them. I never knew that the engine in these Lamborghinis, and in a lot of Lamborghinis, is actually offset. It's off by a little bit. If you look at the cross, the braces, the engine is not centered with the brace, which for somebody who just loves aesthetics is a really frustrating thing. But if you look, it's off a little bit. I don't know the reason other than to say probably there's some part that has to go a certain way, and so to fit it in the right way and to maintain balance of the car, and there's some part that's heavier on one side than the other, they had to offset it a little bit. But one of the strangest things, you would think that they would figure out a way, this massive company, to make it perfectly center, and yet it's not. So just super strange. All right, Porsche 911 GT3 RS, one of the best cars in here. Everyone loves it. This one in particular though, here's the quirk about this. This one has the Y-Suck package on it, which in summary is a bunch of carbon fiber, magnesium wheels, a bit of stiffness, but here's the crazy part. Those things are all fantastic. It's $18,000 for that package. You're already buying this stunning track-focused car. The GT3 RS takes the GT3R and moves it to a whole new level, and then you add another $18,000 on top of it, and that's just nuts. So that's the one thing about the GT3 RS. Here's the other thing. I'm not gonna do it because it makes me nervous, but if you open this lid, which obviously engine is here, when you open it, if you've worked on it and then you go to close it, you can't just close it like a normal lid. You have to hold down a little latch over here, and you have to hold that down carefully while putting down the lid, because it could either break the latch or not let the hood go down. So that's one of the weirdest things, is why not just let it shut on its own? Why not just be able to lift it up, it stays up, you do what you need to do and close it? No, after you've presumably been working on the back of your GT3 RS, you have to be super careful, even though you're probably tired, you're probably trying to pay attention, it's probably late, you're probably, trying to figure everything out. You have to still remember to use this little tiny latch. And that's just the weirdest thing. Why Porsche? Why'd you do it? All right, C8 Corvette, really exciting, 2020, brand new, here last year. But this car, for being a Chevrolet, still has a few weird things. Now the one you can see here, but then I'll also take you inside so you can see exactly what's going on. If you come around and look, get this on. Is it gonna turn on? Okay, so we had to stop recording for a second here because we are going to tell you about this, which I'll show you in a second, is that this is just a screen. It'll show you that backup camera that we just showed you. But as I went to turn it on, I had a lot of trouble. So on most cars, you hit once, you hit twice, and then you're in the accessory mode, which is, you've got your fans on, you can open and close the windows, your music's blasting, whatever. And that's what I thought was gonna happen. It was like, perfect, the camera will turn on, I don't have to start a car, I don't have to make it loud in here. As I do it, 1 press, 2 press, nothing happens. Literally we stopped because I couldn't figure it out. I went over and I said, hey, can we start this car up? Because I think we have to start the car to do it. He's like, no, you idiots. You have to just 1 long press hold, still holding, and now it turns on so that we can show you, here's what the dash looks like. There's the rear backup camera showing you what's behind me right now. But I think even more than that, literally what we learned right now is that That is a stupid amount of time that you have to wait holding down that button. Now, the videographer right now has a Corvette, and so I'm not allowed to say anything slightly negative about that car, but to me that's a little bit of a weird thing that maybe, you know, Chevy should figure out before making another one of these. Anyway, that's the one thing about the C8 Corvette, is that you have to wait a long time. GT500. Now, this is probably a lot of you, maybe myself included, would say this is more of a feature than it is a quirk, but the quirk about this car is that it is so ridiculously loud. All you have to do is look up, you know, GT500 start on YouTube and you'll find ridiculously loud starts, and that will blow your headphones out. But here's the thing for us that makes a difference. This car is so loud that on some racetracks we've been banned from running it because it breaks their noise ordinances. And here's where this becomes a quirk rather than a feature. There's no way to stop it. It's not like you can just hit a button in track mode and just make it nice and quiet, because the performance of this thing needs all of that, you know, outflow to make sure that it's running really well. So far we have not been able to figure out a way to make sure that it's nice and quiet, because it just wants to be the loudest car ever. If you've been on the racetrack and hear it flown by, you would think, what car is that? This car. It is so insanely loud, and that's a fascinating thing about it. Okay, we're over at the AMG GTR, and let's just say hypothetically, as I figure out how to get this open, there we go. You need to work on your AMG. So you open it up and you think, oh, I just want to keep working on it. Okay, so that's a good amount of room, right? And you think, no, I really need more room. And you just keep going, and you keep going. Look at how massively this opens. Is this it? This is almost vertically. Look at this. This is like a gaping crocodile. This is so massive. What do you need to do? Like, you would be laying down in this thing. You would be sprawled all the way out. I'm 5'11". I do not need this much space. I can't imagine why you would need this. But if you say needed to even like pull the whole engine out or something, I guess this is a super helpful thing. You don't have to like undo everything here. You can just let it all the way open. This is massive and it's nuts. Dodge Challenger Hellcat Widebody. Not only is this thing a beast, but here's the fun fact about this one. This has got the oldest chassis by a long shot in our fleet. This chassis is older than me. I just turned 30 years old and it's older than me. Underneath, essentially, this chassis is an E-Series Mercedes. Took it all up, it's the exact same as an E30 E-Series Mercedes from 30 years ago. What that means is that it's actually cheaper to buy the licensing of an existing chassis that's already been done and completed. So Mercedes did all the hard work on this 30 years ago, and Dodge said, we'll just buy it off of you. It's cheaper than developing our own. And so as a result, we have this incredible car. It doesn't cost as much money, but it runs effectively because Mercedes. All right, we saved the best for last. McLaren 570S. Now, we talked earlier, I said that McLarens have a whole lot of quirks. We're gonna talk about two right now. The first one is that say for whatever reason, your battery dies on this. You hit the key fob and nothing happens. You try to open the door, dead as a doornail. Instead of just pulling out a key, say you walk over here, there's no keyhole over here. You think, okay, maybe it's solely on the driver's side. That makes sense. Maybe just one keyhole. That's normal. You look here, there's no keyhole. Not only that, but where's your spare key? Now, we're gonna show you right now what happens when you have to find your spare key. First of all, you have to open up the key fob, which already feels like not a great thing. And then you gotta fish out the key.
Get it out of there, look at that boy. Now that's your spare key to get into the car if that battery ever dies. So we're gonna give it to Aaron here and see if he can figure out where it goes.
And then after that, as you're probably watching right now, you have to get underneath the car, put your hand underneath.
Oh, is he getting it?
Feel along underneath, get down on your back, because on your stomach you can't even see it, and find the keyhole to get the key into. Yeah, because you can feel it going, but there's a lot of resistance. Now, I didn't even try to turn that key. I didn't even try to turn the key because it offered such resistance. But if you do turn the key, I've been told the door will pop open. And if the window's up, which this one's not, you also have to carefully release the window glass from this piece of trim, which already you're locked out of your car, you're having a rough day, you have to get underneath your car, you gotta turn the key, hope you don't break the key, hope you don't break your window, just to open up the door. Now, after that, if you want to, let's just say at this point you're super ambitious, you've got the door open, then you have to, in here, find a sneakily hidden release for the hood in this door. We're showing you it right now. You have to find this release. It's hard to find. I couldn't find it. Our technician had to show me where it was. Once you've done that, then you finally come over and your hood's open. You lift up your hood. At this point, you've gone through 6 different steps and you open the hood. You think, okay, perfect. I found some nice guy who's gonna jump my McLaren, who's probably laughing, taking pictures. You get it open and you look and you're like, okay, I think if I read the manual, it tells me that there's this little panel that comes off. You pull that little panel off, and as you can see, that panel is way too small to get your jumper cables in. You can't even get them in. You can't jump the car. So this dude who's helping you here with your jumping your car, who's waiting for you, you've got this open. You think, okay, perfect, we'll jump the car now. You can't. You have to literally go and release all of the weather stripping. You got to pull it all out. Then you have to start undoing all of these different little bolts and pull out the entire front lining of this frunk just to get to your battery, just to change the battery, which is why no one ever does this. Literally, the quirk about this is that McLaren just assumes that their owners are going to have enough, wisdom to just call somebody, or they're all rich enough that they're just going to figure out a way to have somebody come in and help them with it. So they have no intention of you ever doing it. But just in case you do, there is this long step of process that you can go through just to get it open. Highly do not recommend, but it is technically possible. So there we go. We're back where we started. Those are all of the quirks. Those are all of the weirdness things about these cars. Now, let me tell you something. As we did this, literally, as we've been filming this today, all of our technicians have called and be like, hey, did you talk about this? Hey, did you talk about this? So most likely, the things that you put in the comments, we'll talk about, and we'll do another whole one of these, because apparently there's a ton of random quirks that I didn't know about that our technicians know a ridiculous amount about. And even like the Ferrari thing that we talked about, apparently the dealership didn't even know about that when they took it to the dealership one day. So there's lots of weird things about these cars. It is honestly though, it's what makes them incredible. It's what makes them so desirable. So we're telling you this, we're showing you these cars. This is not where they are typically. Next weekend, they're heading out to New Hampshire. We'll be in New Jersey. So we want to see you on track. Again, we have a Father's Day giveaway going on. We'll put the link down below. If you want merch, I wore this awesome shirt because it's green and I really like it, but also because you can buy it on our merch store. So go to our website, enter the sweepstakes, head to the apparel page, buy some of our merchandise, and we'll see you on track, and we'll talk to you later.